All right, cool. Quick show of hands. How many of you guys have heard of or used Zapier? So a few. Okay, cool. Zapier, for those of you who don't know, is a very simple solution for basically writing low-code automations or no-code automations where you're connecting services together without writing any code. So it's really great for like marketing departments or just general people in the company that want to contribute a bit more. Today I'm talking about Windmill. Has anyone here heard of Windmill before? Cool. That's my friend. Okay, cool. Yeah, so Windmill is basically something I found within the last month, having had issues with a platform called Make, which is just like Zapier, but just cheaper. And so in my search of trying a bunch of different platforms, I found that Windmill.dev felt like it was the last low-code solution I would ever need. This is my simple talk about it. Some background about me. My name is Tryston. I'm a co-host here. I am a software engineer and consultant. I do all kinds of work. I do a lot of like freelance Shopify work. I work on front ends, like websites, landing pages, back end using WebSockets, databases, just kind of a jack of all trades kind of person. So yeah. Oh, that title is incorrect from a previous talk. Okay, so just ignore that. So essentially, like, what is a low-code solution? Well, you have Zapier on the left. You have Make, which is one I've used. You got Naten. That's another one that's also open source, so you could self-host it. And then HubSpot, it's more of a CRM, but you can do a lot of automations with it. And so a lot of platforms have like automation tools built in, which are really cool. It really enables a lot more productivity. But one of the downsides is that when you're using a platform like HubSpot, not only is it expensive, but you also are locked to what they actually add. So you're basically, if you want to do custom stuff, you're completely bottlenecked by the actual company, and they're a huge company, which adds security, but it can get in your way sometimes. Okay, cool. So let's just go ahead and get started. So we'll just look at just their landing page just a little bit, just to get an idea. One thing that's really cool is they're open source. So it's an entire self-hostable stack for building your own kind of low-code solutions. And the cool thing is that it allows you to, as they say in the title, turn scripts into auto-generated UIs, APIs, and cron jobs. So basically, what's really cool about this is that if you're a software engineer like me, like Zapier is great because I can just write the automation, have it run on the server, and I don't have to worry about it. Unless my code has an error, there's never going to be an error. Whereas with something like this allows me to write my own scripts in basically whatever language, like Node.js, so like TypeScript, even Python, and some other stuff, to write my own business logic, and then I'm building flows using those individual scripts. So I could have a very simple script, which is just a function that's like fetch a specific user from a database, and then I could have a mutation function, and then I could do like whatever I want by connecting them in any way. They're also backed by YC, so that's like a big reason why I trust them. They have a really good demo video that if you want to learn more, I would check that out. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and get in. So this is their current platform. I'll zoom in for you guys. This is their cloud platform that they have, so you can just log in. They give you like 10,000 free runs a month. I self-host it as well, so it's totally self-hostable. It's really easy, actually. So there's a lot of things here. Like you're looking at this, and it takes a little bit to getting used to, but you can basically create scripts, or you can create flows that then connect those individual scripts. So think of a script as like, if you're like into encoding, you're just having like a single function. So it's just your main function. So I have all these other scripts that I wrote that I'm gonna elaborate on to build something pretty cool. So like I said, I do a lot of freelancing work, and my current flow for like the way I bill some of my clients is they'll give me a bunch of random tasks. Some of them will take an hour, some of them will take 10. And so I'll manually have an hour tracker on my phone that I'll write in each task name, how many hours I worked, the hours or the billing rate. And then at the end of every month, like usually the first Monday of every month, I'll copy one by one every task I did into a Stripe invoice, and then send the invoice out to them, and Stripe handles the calculations, payments, and all that kind of stuff, which is cool. But sometimes I'll spend like an hour on just building one invoice for one client. And I only have like one main client that I do this flow for, but if I had more, it would just be like 2-3 hours just manually copying stuff when I already have all the data in the first place. So recently I migrated to this other platform called NocoDB, which, has anyone heard of Airtable here? Beautiful. Airtable is so good. I just use NocoDB because it's just self-hostable as well. Airtable is closed source. But basically, for those of you that don't know, it's basically a spreadsheet as a service. So I have a spreadsheet here that really is just an actual table in a database. And then I have custom columns. So for example, like I have a task here, which is update footer to 2025 for my Airbnb client. I actually don't work with Airbnb. I mean, that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, they said that their footer is super outdated and their investors have lost all faith, which I'm blocked on, actually. But I'm charging them 3 hours at $30 an hour, and then I have other tasks like resolve email availability, or deliverability, excuse me, and I have different rates for different tasks. And you'll notice that some of them have different statuses, like if you're on Asana, you might have some that are not started yet, you have some that are in progress, some that are obviously done, and then some that are blocked on. But what it'd be cool to do is if I wrote a script, something that's like on the first Monday of every month, which is what I'm already doing, go through my task list, get all the tasks that are marked as done, and then calculate, basically each task becomes a line item in a Stripe invoice, take the hourly rate, make that the quantity, the hours, make that the quantity, and make the hourly rate the actual item price. So basically just calculate, just turn this into an invoice. So I currently have no invoices. This is my Stripe, but test mode. I have one customer in here that I manually added. It is myself, with my name John Doe. So yeah, so let's go ahead and start by creating a script. So I already have a couple scripts because I already tested this flow. I have one script that's just, let's see, where would it start? Get Stripe customer by email. So this is a script that I wrote, and I can go ahead and click edit. And this is the entire script. All this does is literally say, hey, what's an email? And what is a Stripe connection that I have, which is just an API key. I could enter any email in here, and it'll just connect to my Stripe. So I can go ahead and try that right now. We know that I'm already in there under this email. So if I click test, it's running the script, and then I get the result, which allows me to copy. And this down here is very smart. If it's a string, it'll allow you to copy as a string. If it's JSON, it'll allow you to copy as like JSON. But yeah, so you just have a lot of really dumb scripts. Like this is nothing, and I could just AI generate this really quickly. So yeah, so the flow starts by like, okay, you know, I already know the table, I know the client's email, so I get the Stripe customer by email, and then I need to create an invoice, and then I need to add a line item for each NocoDB task, and then I need to email myself the result so I can basically look at the Stripe invoice. That'll be a draft, because I don't want to just send out AI-generated invoice, basically. But nowhere in this did I write a script yet that allows me to read the done tasks from my NocoDB. So we're going to go ahead and write that. So I'm just going to create a new script. And I'm going to skip giving it a name right now, because I can use this magic wand AI. It's really cool. I can generate from scratch. And so what do I want this script to do? Well, I am trying to build an invoice auto generator, so I have to interact with Stripe and do all this stuff. But really, I need to just tone down the task and think, okay, this is just a single function. Like literally, what is the minimum thing I need to do right now? Well, all I need to do right now, because the only script I'm missing is getting the actual records from NocoDB, I just need to take the NocoDB table that I'm looking at. I need to get all the records that are done, and then just return them as an array. That's all I need to do. So that's what I'm going to tell the AI to do. I'm going to be like, hey, I have a NocoDB connection. I need to read all the records from a specific table, and with the status equal to done. I'm capitalizing these because I already know a little bit how the NocoDB API works. So capture all the records that equal that status, and then just return the result. Well, results. Okay, there we go. And the cool thing about this AI is they actually don't offer their own AI. They allow you to bring your own API key. So you could bring OpenAI, you could bring a Anthropic API key for Claude, which I recommend because in my experience, Claude is just generally better for programming. So yeah, and it shows a diff. So it's just like in Git, if you're doing a pull request or merging code, this is literally just like a Visual Studio Code editor in your browser. So yeah, so it looks like it's defined a NocoDB resource, all the relevant information we would need. And then it's got our main function, which just takes in one resource, which is the NocoDB table. Then it's fetching from the API, which is here. And then it's just parsing as JSON, returning it. Now here we can see, here's the inputs for our function. So like with the previous one, it took in an email. Well, now all we have is just this resource. So now I can give it a resource. So a resource is basically just some sort of connection to some external service. So I could have a Stripe resource, I could have a HubSpot resource, I could have, in this case, a NocoDB resource. You could even have S3, you can have like literally whatever, and you could build custom ones. So I'm going to go ahead and build my own resource for NocoDB. So it takes 4 variables. It takes an API URL, which is your instance for hosting NocoDB, which in this case I'm just using this. It takes a table, which is the table ID, which is just this, a workspace, and we'll put that there, and then I need to get an actual API token. Okay, feature settings. Oops, that's not what I want. There we go. Okay, we'll copy that same token just to reuse it, paste it in. And so the cool thing is that whoever configured this resource has already said, this is basically not that, like, this can be public, this can be public, this can be public. Public as in plain text, like it's not encrypted. But this token, because it's an API token, should be encrypted. And so it automatically is hidden. And then it's automatically, I can make it inlined, meaning that it's just saved within this resource, but I can also make it a secret, meaning that it's a global environment variable for the entirety of my NocoDB like workspace, which could be useful if, you know, in this case, this is a NocoDB connection for not just NocoDB, but this specific table and workspace that I'm referencing. So once I place this in here, I can reuse this literally anywhere. Even in my scripts, I can import them like they're environment variables. So I click save, and then boom, now it's auto-populating with my NocoDB connection. If I had more connections, I could select from this dropdown. But yeah, so let's actually just go ahead and test if this actually works. No result. So it actually ran, it didn't error, but we got no result. And that's because this AI generated incorrect code for me. When doing this, I realized that it was, for some reason, using the V1 API rather than the newest one is V2. So for whatever reason, it was just giving me the wrong code. That's one of the things about this is that it's a very powerful platform if you get into it and you spend time using it, and it's also if you like already know how to code. So if you're writing the scripts, it's really powerful, but you have to actually know how to think through problems a little bit or learn it as you go and be willing to put up with it, because especially with AI like generating code, it's really good at generating small scripts like this, but sometimes you are going to run into issues where like Zapier will cultivate a very high quality hub of connections that, while limited, are actually high quality. You know it'll work. Whereas with this, you're literally just can do whatever you want. So it's a positive and negative. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just implement using the actual valid API, which is the NocoDB API. Since I don't want to take up too much time, I'm actually just going to copy over the actual code that's correct. And you'll notice it's the exact same type, so AI was correct about that. All it is just a separate, like we're just using V2 and a separate where clause, which is basically a slight version of SQL, just saying status equals done. And then if we run that, now we got our result. And not only, like I said, with the smart result thing, we didn't just get back like text. It literally was smart enough to format it. So it's like, oh, this script returned an array. Cool, well now here's the IDs, here's the name, here's the hours. I could download this as CSV if I wanted. I could copy it as JSON and just click copy right there. Super nice. I could even preview it if I wanted it. So yeah, so that's that script. We're gonna call it fetch done status equals done records from NocoDB. Cool. Now I've saved it as a draft. Now to be able to access it externally, I have to deploy it, which is kind of weird, but you get to do that. And now, yeah, now it's here, and I could run it again. And I could preview the script. Cool. So that is how making a script works. Really quick, since we've already covered a lot, and we're going to cover a bit more. Any questions right now? Any questions? Cool. Tony?
You mentioned a couple of cloud LLM APIs that can it also be used with a local LLM?
That is a great question. I don't think they have support with that right now. I believe it's a workspace-specific config. Workspace settings, Windmill AI. Yeah, so they have OpenAI, they have Anthropic, and they have Mistral. So I think at some point they will, because that's obviously a big thing, but they don't have support for that right now.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So just to quickly clarify, because you said you can create scripts, right? Because it's automation, so each script we create, we can use as a flow together after you create one. So for example, you create a script, right? So technically, can we put this as an element in the flow somewhere, and then create another script in the flow, so technically create our own pipelines?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're going to go on to next.
Oh, okay.
That's a very good question. No, I didn't go to it yet. Yeah, I wanted to focus on the script section because I think what makes this platform useful is that, okay, so if you think about it, let's say you're someone who doesn't code, and we'll go over this in a second when we go over the flows, but if you're someone who doesn't code, you can still be very productive by having a tailored set of services or actions that you can then connect. So then you can build business logic. And right now, if you're using something like Zapier, basically the company itself is the gatekeeper, essentially. Whereas if you're on a team where you have a software engineer, they can be writing the scripts, so therefore they could be the ones that are like creating the custom, difficult code. Whereas then if you're someone who's more of a low-code kind of person, you can come in and connect everything together. So it's basically making both sides of the team more productive by delegating the tasks effectively. Cool, so we'll go ahead and go into that. So now all our scripts are done. If I go to flows, we have our current flow, which is one I was already working on. It's currently in draft mode. So if I click on it, so we know all the resources we already need. So we need a customer email, who's the customer we're sending this to. We need a NocoDB table to read from. We need a Stripe connection to create the invoice. And then we need a resend connection for just sending an email. It could be anything else. Now, if I enter my email right now, it's not going to work because the flow is missing a chain. So because I haven't added that NocoDB, like I configured this flow and then removed the NocoDB fetch from it, it's not finishing. So what happened is we can see our flow here. We have our initial input. The first step I put was get Stripe customer. Then I click get completed tasks. But there's a gap here. It's going from A to C, so we have to fill that gap. So what it'll do is basically just ran this individual script, and then was like, cool, we're good, move to the next step. And then something happened later in the flow. Yeah, so let's go ahead and edit that flow so that way we can finish that up and make it work. Cool. So what's the error we're getting? Input row items is connected to a missing module with ID C. So here at this step, we've clicked on this step, and we can see the individual script actually for this step. So this is the one that's like basically for every row item, we're going to calculate the price, and then we're going to add it to a Stripe invoice, and then we'll just return the invoice ID. It takes in a Stripe invoice a Stripe connection. Same thing as here. So Stripe, customer ID, and here I'm plugging in a result from a previous script. So results.a in this case is basically the return of this. So you can see here that, oops. I'll have to run the flow for it to actually work, but yeah. So we'll go ahead and add that. So I have to click on a new method, and there's tons of options. I'm just going to go to my own scripts, and I'm going to look at fetch status equals done records. So now this will run. It's already fetched this, and if it's already got the input because I already have my NocoDB connection globally. So actually, it might even just work like this. If we click save, and then we click test flow, and we put in the customer's email. Let's see what happens. We're going to click run. Ran into error during isolated results.c. Okay, so we might need to fix up what's happening here. So results.c. So the invoice ID, so this creates a Stripe invoice, that's B, so then results.b, that's the Stripe invoice. Then results.c, we probably actually want it to be F, because this one has the ID of F now. So it was just, because I deleted a module, it was not responding correctly. So now we're rerunning it with the same input. Boom. And this is the, thanks. This is just the result of the final script that ran, which happened to just be sending an API, or sorry, sending an email, which is just, this is the ID of the transaction basically. We could see like the timeline, we can see node status, I don't know what all that is, but yeah, so you could see individually how long each script took. And then you could even collect, like you could see the individual results of each script essentially. So looking here, I can see like a log, for example. This is a log that's in that script. I can see the result here. So you can see some cool stuff. So let's go check my email. It should have gone to my work email, so let's check and see if it's in here. Cool, review Airbnb invoice. Here's your auto-generated invoice for the current month. Invoice, please approve it. Cool, here's our invoice. Emails aren't delivering in the EU correctly. We're migrating to the new Strappy version. So those were 50 hours at $80 an hour. So let's go look. We should have only 2 completed tasks, essentially. Where's our, oh. Cool. Looks like it missed one for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. That's weird. Oh, no, it's right there. It doesn't have a name. Okay. That is weird. Okay. Anyways, yeah, so it actually did work. For some reason, one of them didn't have a name, but it should have been there. But yeah, so that was a very quick, I actually threw this together, like, I was hoping to do this on Saturday, but I didn't have time, so I was like, oh, am I gonna have time to build all this this morning? And it took me an hour to put in all this dummy data, to build the individual scripts, to connect them all together, and then test it. It really only took an hour, which is kind of crazy, because now it's like, okay, this took me an hour once a month. Now all of a sudden I took 1 hour and just built this. This ran in literally a second, now all of a sudden I've saved myself basically an extra 11 hours this year, or 12 hours a year, which is like actual money. Yes?
So have you self-coded some of these in terms of like making the HTTP or HTTPS requests?
Do you repeat the question too?
Oh no, I heard it, but thanks, yeah.
Repeat it for the stream.
Oh, sorry, could you actually, I forgot the exact question, sorry.
So I was asking that if he had, like, when you take something like Zapier, Make, or any of the if this then that, like a lot of times it is no code, right? And you're talking about low code, so I'm assuming that you're like making and interpreting some of the like HTTP or HTTPS calls, and like if so, I guess my main question is like, how do you do the authentication? Like if it's like OAuth and like you have to get the initial token because like you used something predefined, so like we didn't really get to see like, because like once you have the token, obviously you just put it in the call, but like obviously there's like an interface on the sort of the no code solutions that's like, well, authenticate this, and then it has it existing already. I guess I was just wondering how that works with this, and if that's a manual process of generating a token, or if there's like a sort of more automated way to do that, if that makes sense, or a easier way.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never personally, I think I've seen in the DevX Discord people ask questions about how to do OAuth stuff with Zapier. So it looks like, yeah, like that's a thing that people do. I personally have never, in my experience working with any kind of low-code solution, never had to use those types of technologies. I could imagine, like for example, like Google Cloud, sometimes you don't need an API key, you need a JSON file that's like a JSON private key. You could also just place that as a secret. For those kind of custom flows, you might have to, like, they might have some FAQ about it or something like that, or maybe it's something they need to add. But yeah.
Good question. Anyone else have any questions for Tryston? I'll start right here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about the self-hosting aspect. How easy it was, because you said it was pretty trivial to do. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could even just show you a little bit about what they wanted or what they want you to do to self-host it. So the big thing they recommend do is basically using Docker. I think at some point they say Helm charts and use Kubernetes, but please don't do that. You just save yourself. If you like your life right now, yeah, they have a couple of, I don't know where they are, but I could probably, no. They have a Docker Compose YML in here that, if we find this right here. So they give you a caddy file, which if you don't know caddy, that's basically Nginx. They give you a baseline EMV. So this is the Docker Compose that they give you. So these are for all the services you basically need. So you have a database, which could be an internal database like this or an external database. It's like a Postgres database, which is what I use. You have a Windmill server, which I assume is for the front end, like the actual, like for hosting the front end and the APIs and stuff. And you have a Windmill worker, which is basically for running the serverless scripts, because each script is its own serverless instance. You have the Windmill worker native, which does something else. Windmill workers reports for generating reports. So there's a lot in here. All I really use is the Windmill server, the Windmill worker, I think the Windmill indexer, which is for like capturing all the info of like running scripts, and then LSP for doing the code, like syntax highlighting and all that kind of stuff. It looks like a lot here, and as someone who's like, I'm familiar with self-hosting, but I'm not like, I can't just whip something up without an error. This really did take me like 10 minutes to just copy over, install Docker Compose, and it was good to go.
Cool.
I see there's a set one to enable multiplayer, only available in the Enterprise Edition. Is that self-hostable?
Yeah. Yeah, they have an enterprise-specific license that I believe is like, I think it's like $1,200 a year. No, $1,200 a month. But yeah, I would say it's probably worth it if you have a lot of people on your team, of course. Yeah.
Cool. Another question over here. I did see you, so.
Great talk, by the way. Cool. I like the tool what presented because I mean I kind of had some pain with the Zapier and stuff like that, and sometimes it's not. They're great, but they can be expensive, and some things is not really obvious. So we can talk a lot, but to be short, I have one question specifically. What about triggers? So for your automation, because automation like tools, they have specific triggers, and you usually never can really customize them. So can you tell us more about triggers, and can you customize triggers or not?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much, because I actually have that in my notes, but I forgot to go over that. Yeah, so there are a lot of custom triggers. So if we go to our flows, and then we probably need to publish this. So we'll click on it. Looks like it's already published.
Just for food, triggers is like whatever action, like it's a start, so whatever start automation just calls a trigger. It's just like two definition for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, no. That's, thanks for explaining that, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you saw that I manually came in here and triggered it. Then here at the beginning of the flow, you have multiple triggers. So you have your traditional webhook, which is probably a lot of what you'll be doing. You can do basically a schedule, which is essentially just a cron job. So I could just set it up so that way I could just put in like, I could set a primary schedule. I could then edit the cron specifically here. Then you could change your time zone even. And then you could enter in an email. So you could just hard code the values there. Or you could create another flow that basically calls this flow with an array of emails, so just one at a time. Like there's so much stuff you could do. Routes, I think that's just like you can have like a public route that can just, once you hit that route, it's just good. WebSockets, Kafka somehow, I don't know what. Emails, you can send an email to a server and it'll be like, yeah, sure, buddy, whatever you want. I don't know what this is. We don't need to go there. But there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, so And then another one too, like, so I was in here, but let's say I'm like completely on a different screen, I'm somewhere nowhere. There's an app I use called Raycast that is basically a really good version of Spotlight, but you have extensions you can install. And I realized, I was like, I wonder if someone made a Windmill docs extension. Someone actually made an extension, not for the docs, but for interacting with your own Windmill instance. So I can come down here to view flows, and then it fetches from, in this case, 2 different instances. So I have a cloud instance, the one that I was demoing on, then I have my actual self-hosted instance. So I could actually filter by instances that I'm connected to. And then, oh, here's my flow that I just created. Oh, here's all my resources. I can just type in the email. And I'll click submit. Boom, job URL, open it up. It opens up on the right instance, and then that failed for some reason. But hey, you know, demos. I didn't make it, so I made the flow, not the, yeah. Yeah, weird. Oh, it's an old script for some reason. Okay. Anyway, that actually will work. I tried it this morning. I just happen to be actually doing it live, which means it won't work. So, yeah. So that's okay. I want to go through some notes. I know I'm taking up a lot of time here, but I just want to make sure I'm like, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do. So what else I would do with this? If I was to keep going with this particular instance, I'd want to maybe actually make it so that way on NocoDB I can make a webhook that's basically like whenever a specific column changes, so for example the status or the hours or anything like that, it can auto send a webhook, which could then send it to a flow to basically rebuild the draft invoice all the time, remove all the items and then rebuild them. So that way, as I'm working on with a client and I'm marking tasks off as done or increasing the hours, they're getting real-time updates of the current month. That way it's just like way more transparency. And there's a couple other ideas I put in here, like just like being able to build flows to automate the creation of, or the resolution of like refund tickets. So a customer comes through your process, okay, well, is your customer support agent like manually going to Stripe or manually going to Shopify, clicking refund? You can start automating that stuff. And then just also one thing I didn't go over is you can actually build UIs using this. So you can literally build apps that interact with your own flows, and people are building like row-based things using databases and putting records, posting records. It's really crazy. Yeah, also, I'm just totally non-humble. I want to, if you work for a company that you think this could be valuable for, or you're just interested in talking to me, even if it's like just for a small like couple questions outside of this, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. My name's Tryston Perry. I'm also willing to do Windmill consulting as I continue to learn more and continue to explore this new technology. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. For anyone else that has any more questions, I guess I could take on the sidebar for extra questions so that we have time for the next speaker. But yeah, thanks again, Tryston.